I'm Anna.
I'm Jessica, and this is the Paranoia Pair.
I'm going to cover Susan Smith this week. Have you heard of Susan?
I've not.
Okay, so she had her parole hearing
Okay.
recently. So in Union, South Carolina, Susan Bond was born on September 26th, 1971 to Linda and Harry.
So she would be like our parents' age.
Yeah.
Okay.
Linda and Harry's marriage was pretty toxic, and it caused Susan and her two other siblings to be pretty scared. You know, nothing like childhood trauma. Harry struggled with alcoholism and would threaten to kill Linda and then kill himself, like, on a regular basis.
That sounds exhausting.
It does. Susan's half-brother, Michael, tried to take his own life before Susan was in preschool.
How old was he, did it say?
It didn't say how old he was, but I would assume that he was probably around like either 11 or a teenager. So obviously growing up in a dysfunctional home definitely had an impact on her childhood. And she was often described as being an unusual and unhappy child.
I think we had those similar descriptions with the unusual part.
Yeah. When she was 6, her mother, Linda, divorced Harry.
Good on you, Linda.
Yes, go Linda. After a heated argument where Linda called the police, and when police arrived, they witnessed Harry hit Linda, and Harry asked to be arrested and taken to jail. 2 weeks after the divorce was finalized, Linda married a man named Beverly Russell.
Okay, so I think Linda's Russian in the thing a little bit.
Yeah, so I wouldn't blame her though if she was like interested in somebody else given her marriage state at the time.
But maybe she just needed to work on herself for a while.
Yeah, I do definitely agree with you. We will get into it.
Okay.
Beverly owned an appliance store in downtown Union, and Linda and her children moved into his 3-bedroom home. 5 weeks after the divorce was finalized between Linda and Harry, Harry had shot himself in the stomach and he died. Susan cherished Harry's coin collection and a recording of his voice. I do believe it was like his voicemail recording.
Like, thanks for calling, or sorry, I can't come to the phone right now.
Yeah. She began thriving in school in her new environment and was more outgoing. And at 15, her stepfather began molesting her, was French kissing her, and
Oh, what the fuck?
yeah, and touching her breasts over her clothing. He would also place Susan's hands to touch his genitals. She confided this information to her guidance counselor, but her family blamed both Susan and Beverly for his actions. So they were basically being like, well, you really wanted this attention and it's your fault.
I mean, at least they made it halfway at blaming Beverly, but like, I don't
Yeah.
understand how, as a mother, you would even. I'm assuming she stays with him. Okay,
she
I
does.
just don't understand how a mother would, like, even if hypothetically her like daughter did initiate it, why would you want to stay with a man who's been like fondling your child?
Yeah, and why would you not get them help if you truly believed that? Like, obviously something would be wrong.
Yeah. And how old was she when this was going on?
15.
Oh my god, that's disgusting.
Beverly was investigated, but influenced by her mother, Linda, Susan decided not to press charges against him after the second reporting when she was 17. Susan's family blamed her for making the abuse public by reporting it and ruining their family image. Heaven forbid you report something bad's happening to you. Susan got a job at the local grocery store between her junior and senior year, and she was promoted to bookkeeper within 6 months. At the beginning of her senior year, she secretly began dating one of her coworkers who was a married man and another coworker at the same time. I don't really blame. I mean, I'm not being like, this is like perfect behavior and agree with what she's doing, but like, she's had like sexual trauma, you know, and it's pretty common for people with that kind of trauma to seek attention from males because
And
That's how they're used to getting attention.
I'm assuming he's older too if he's married.
Yes, and this is between her junior and senior year, so she's probably, like, 17.
Oh my.
Susan got pregnant by one of these men and had an abortion, but after her abortion, the married man she was secretly dating found out she was dating someone else at the same time and broke up with her.
No.
Yeah, God forbid you date someone else the same time
You
as me
mean
when I'm dating you and I'm married to
I was gonna say,
someone.
you mean your side chick made you a side guy and you were like, "What the heck?"
Susan became severely depressed and tried to kill herself by overdosing on Tylenol and aspirin. She was admitted to the Spartanburg Medical Center for a week. And during that week, the doctors unfolded that this was not the first time Susan tried to take her own life. When she was just 13 years old, she also tried to overdose on aspirin
At 13?
at 13.
Oh my god.
It's actually like, I mean, it's pretty common because it's in like every household too.
Yeah, that's
This
true.
is like, this is why you gotta lock up your medicine cabinet, guys. After a month of recovery, Susan's bosses were super supportive and welcomed her back to her job. Shortly after her return, she began dating a coworker named David, who she actually went to high school with. They hit it off really well, and a year later, on March 15th, 1991, they got married after finding out Susan was pregnant. Their first son was named Michael, and he was born on October 10th the same year.
So did she name her first son after her brother?
Yes.
Oh.
Susan continued to work at the local grocery store and enrolled in some college courses after the birth of Michael. And it was basically what every single young person in this town would do because it was so small. Like, think of like our hometown where people would get married like right out of high school and start families.
Mm.
Um, but Susan and David's marriage was starting to fall apart because they both started having an affair and they would go back and forth on whether or not they wanted to stay married.
I mean, it sounds like it would have been good at least since they were both cheating on each other. At least it was equal.
Yeah. David felt as though Susan wanted more than what he could offer, and they would often fight about money and Susan's mother, Linda, which I don't blame them because Susan's mom was a piece of work.
I've never met like a very nice Linda.
Susan became pregnant with their second child in November 1992. They decided to give their relationship another try, and this prompted David to buy a house that Linda and Beverly helped cover the down payment for in December so that they could move back in together because Linda was really pushing for him to like get all this crap together in order to prove that he was basically worthy of being married to her daughter, even though it sounds like she didn't really give a crap about her.
I was gonna say, like, why does he care if he's worthy or not? He doesn't really want to be married to her daughter, anyways.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, he like really actually wanted this to like work out. Susan, however, I think she just wanted the attention. The cycle continued though because Susan began pushing David out of her life and he became lonely. And in June, he started seeing a coworker at the grocery store that he worked at named Tiffany. And Susan would come in and scream at David if she saw him talking to other women at the store. August 5th, 1993, Susan and David welcomed their second child, Alexander, and ignored their conflicts for a short while, but inevitably decided to end their relationship 3 weeks later. Susan didn't want to work alongside David and his new girlfriend, Tiffany, at the grocery store
That makes sense.
that, you know, she was working at with them. And so she found a new job where she was promoted to assistant. She actually was the assistant to the executive secretary.
Thanks.
So she must be like really good.
Going
She's
straight from a
getting,
grocery store
yeah,
to assistant.
yeah, she's like really was promoted quite quickly. Um She actually enjoyed her work responsibilities there and became interested in Tom, who was one of the boss's sons. Before Susan had filed for divorce, her and Tom started to see each other in January 1994. In an effort to make their relationship work for their children, Susan and David made one last attempt to make their relationship work out before Susan told David she wanted a divorce in July. David moved into an apartment 2 miles down the road, so pretty close.
I mean, that would be kind of nice for co-parenting.
hmm In September, Susan started dating Tom again and felt like her life was settling down and that she had found someone she truly loved. Susan's lawyers served David divorce papers, and October 21st, the divorce papers were filed with the courthouse. Unfortunately for Susan, October 17th, Tom ended their relationship through a letter, feeling that Susan was too needy, possessive, and Tom didn't want children.
That's like nowadays you're not supposed to break up through text message, and
hmm
like that's like the original. Like,
Yeah,
not. I would do that.
breaking up through a letter.
Yep.
That would suck.
I actually went. I had a friend whose boyfriend broke up with her through a letter. I'm not gonna say her name. Her boyfriend broke up with her through a letter because he said God came to him in his dream and said that he shouldn't be with her,
What the heck?
and she was like devastated. And this guy was like a foot shorter than her, and I was like, oh darn it. He also used to call me tampon because I had red hair.
Turns out she was a lesbian.
Yeah. Well, weird how those things work, but anyways, getting dumped by a letter because God told you to.
Yeah, especially by someone that you're like in love with, and turns out he doesn't want children. Kind of
Which is
like
a little weird considering you've had children the entire time.
you kind of like a slap in the face.
This isn't going to be one of those things where she gets rid of her children, is it? Okay.
On October 25th, 1994, around 8 p.m., Susan got into her car with her sons, Michael, who was 3, and Alexander, who was 1, and she took a drive. Just after 9 o'clock, Susan is found outside of a house pleading for help and calls 911 to report her car along with her 2 sons.
Wait, off the record, is this the one where they get shot?
No.
Okay, just kidding then.
Okay. Susan is found outside of a house pleading for help and calls 911 to report her car with her 2 sons, victim of hijacking at a red light by a black man at gunpoint. And I just want to say this is like around the time where people would just blame black men. They would make up stories, and of course, the person who was perpetuating the crime was a black man.
It's kind of like it happens a lot in these cases where like they like make up a crime that didn't happen. It's always with someone of a different race.
And it's either that or it's some scraggly homeless guy
Yeah.
with long hair. Like, why would you stop for someone?
Or why wouldn't you lock the door if they're going to come up to your car?
This man who doesn't look safe, I'm going to stop and ask them if they need help.
Matter of fact, I'm going to open my door
Yeah.
and let him in.
I'm actually going to hand them the keys to my car.
He'll be fine. He's not going to hurt my children in the back.
He said he'd bring it back by 3 p.m. It's fine. Police contact David and they tell him what happened. And when he shows up, Susan collapses in his arms and is very distraught. On October 26th, Tom called Susan to give him his regards for her missing children. And Susan quickly changed the subject to their relationship, leading Tom to tell her to focus on her 2 missing sons. That would be the last interaction she would have with Tom. Don't blame the guy. On October 27th, David and Susan had a polygraph test done by the FBI, and they were read their Miranda rights. David's test results came back showing he knew nothing of the disappearance of his children, and Susan's, on the other hand, showed she wasn't being completely honest about not knowing where her children were. Every time investigators sat down with Susan, she would be given a polygraph test, and every time they interviewed her, her story kept changing and her details were not adding up. Like the stoplight she said was red. The stoplight in the direction that Susan was supposedly traveling is permanently green because it's not a very busy intersection, and it's only triggered for a light change if there's a car sitting there. Like if there's a car going cross
Yeah,
traffic.
kinda like the one, down that street
Mhm.
where it's, like, perpetually green unless there's the 2 car like
Yeah.
so that being said, if it was red, then there would probably be through traffic.
Yeah, and she said that there wasn't any cars on the road.
Yeah, that doesn't make much sense.
So David and Susan appeared on TV, begging for the safe return of their children every single day since their disappearance. But on November 3rd, 1994, Susan confessed to investigators that she purposefully sent her car into a lake with her children still in it after being confronted in an interview about her lies. In her written confession, Susan stated that she drove off the highway onto a road that goes to John D. Long Lake, and she wanted to kill herself with her 2 children, believing that they would be better off dead than without a mother. So she put her car in neutral, and she had to stop several times because she just couldn't do it. Like, she had to take a break and, like, really pump herself up before she'd try again. Um, and this is until she, um, decided she was just gonna get out of her car, released the parking brake, and she watched her car roll into the lake with her children inside. She told the agent that she loved her children very much and that she regretted what she had done immediately after the car had hit the water, but that it was too late. And she instead ran to the nearest house and planned her story that she would tell.
So, she was going to kill them because she was gonna kill herself, and
Mhm.
it would be cruel for them to live a life without their mother, but then she plans on not killing herself.
Yeah, she just couldn't kill herself. Like, she couldn't go through with it, but if she, of course, could go through with killing her children instead.
As a parent, I think you would rather your children live without you than your
Yeah.
children not live.
Yeah. That same day, the Department of Natural Resources found Alex and Michael's body in Susan's car at the bottom of the lake, and the Union County Sheriff's Office announced Susan Smith would be charged with 2 counts of murder. David was devastated by the news, stating his whole reason for living was now gone. January 16th, 1995, Susan was taken to the courthouse for arraignment where it was announced that they will seek the death penalty. And a trial date was set for July 18th, 1995. On that day, the courthouse got a bomb threat and everybody had to be evacuated. And the person who made that threat was quickly found and arrested. During Susan's trial, prosecution tells of her relationship with Tom, claims Susan killed her children in hopes that it would somehow bring him back to her because he did not want children. On the other hand, Susan's defense team painted Susan as a victim, using her childhood molestation, the death of her father at a very young age, and even her own suicide attempts to sway jurors to avoid the death penalty. The jury found Susan guilty on 2 counts of murder, and on July 28th, she was sentenced to life in prison, but she had the eligibility for parole on November 20th, 2024.
She did not deserve parole.
David was disappointed by the sentencing and felt that Susan didn't get the harsh punishment she deserved. David actually says he forgives Susan now after many, many years. He actually remarried and has 2 more children with his new wife. And he said that he found his purpose in life again. Um, Trouble seemed to stick around with Susan, though, because she gets in trouble 5 to 6 times for a variety of reasons, ranging from self harm to possession of narcotics and marijuana, which resulted in her getting her privileges revoked. So, no visitors, phone calls, etc.
She had narcotics in prison?
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
In 2010, Susan was found guilty on drug charges and again in 2015, both in which she lost her privileges for over a year. And in September 2020, Susan was found guilty of sexual misconduct for having sex with 2 different prison guards.
I hope the prison guards were also.
Um, I do believe they lost their jobs. I'm not sure about charges. Um, in Susan's parole hearing on November 20th, 2024, she was denied release. And David kept his word about showing up to every single trial and making sure that she would not get released. And he kept his words to his kids.
I'm glad she did not get parole.
I am so glad too. I was so nervous. Because when I wrote this, it had been like, it was like a week before her hearing. And I was like, I need to come back to this.
I think I remember you telling me that you were waiting to
Yes.
finish one because it was a current one.
Mm-hmm.
That's messed up.
It is super messed up. And I understand that like sexual trauma is a thing, but it's not an excuse
To murder your
to murder
innocent
people.
children.
Yeah. It'd be different if she murdered the person who like was making
Yeah, some like vigilante justice.
Yeah, vigilante justice.
I know we shouldn't agree with it, but
I do.
I know that you're like not supposed to like agree. I know like it's kind of one of those things like with podcasts and stuff that like you're not supposed to agree about like the death penalty. But
And the fact that it took her so long to confess.
I'm glad though that she didn't get what she wanted and that Tom did not in fact
Mm-hmm.
get back with her.
And she was doing so well though, like at her new job and everything, just for some guy. Listen, men are rarely worth it.
Literally, no offense, honey. If you hear this, my husband, no offense.
And that concludes my case.
Well, I'm very glad that Susan is still in prison, and I hope that she stays there for the rest of her life. Sometimes I guess I think the death penalty is a little too easy.
Yeah, it's like an easy way out.
Yeah, so I guess it is kind of fitting that she like is stuck there for the rest of her life. And obviously she's not enjoying it if she keeps getting drug charges.
Well, maybe she is enjoying it.
Yeah, that's true. I guess there are the two guards.
Yeah, and the narcotics.
I'd probably do drugs if I was in prison too.
Yeah, just make the time go by.
Yeah, because it would get really boring in there. I definitely feel like off the record, I definitely feel like being a woman in prison is a lot better than being a man in prison.
I don't know. There's like a lot of like drama in the ladies' pods though.
Yeah, but a lot less shower problems. I feel like it's not as bad at least.
They're like fucking hard.
Yeah, but it's not like Big Bubba
True.
when you drop your soap. At least it's just like what was that one girl's name off of The Orange is the New Black, the big lesbian lady?
Oh,
Maybe. And her and the redhead were like in a competition to see who could get more girls.
yeah, I think so. I remember watching 60 Days In, and the girls' pod would always get their homemade sex toys confiscated.
I just could not. Ugh. It would be tough in prison because like you have a roommate.
Yeah.
I don't even think like if I had diarrhea and I had a roommate, like
Oh
I
my
don't even
God.
know how I would deal with
I
that.
don't know. Imagine having to deal with someone else's diarrhea in the middle of the night and the smell.
Imagine us in prison together and
Oh my
having to
God.
deal with each other.
And that concludes my case on Susan Smith.
Fuck you, Susan. Thanks for listening.
If you enjoyed this episode, you can find us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, and also Facebook at Paranoia Pair Pod, and that is all one word. And we will see you next Friday.
Stay spooky.